Hey parents, I want to take a few minutes and explain what is going on when a child is struggling with speech, whether that's speech apraxia or a speech delay of some sort, or they're not quite up to par with communication. There's really 3 steps involved in this complex neurological sequence that is speaking or communicating. And let me walk you through that, what can go wrong and how you can help with it. So step 1 is we've just got to take that information in from our environment. The extreme example of this being an issue would obviously be someone who is deaf. They cannot take information in, which means the production of words is going to be a lot more challenging because they're not able to mimic or articulate that properly. But let's say that's not the case. It's not that extreme of there's no input. Let's just say maybe it's muddled. That's going to affect the downstream part of it. So step 1 is we have to have accurate, complete input. That sensory input, that proprioceptive data has to be complete and what is actually going on in the environment. So step 1 is input, and then step 2 is integration. So we got to take that information in, and then the brain is integrating that and coordinating all of the next steps. So the integration piece is a big second part of it. Data in, the computation you could think of it as if this is a computer lingo, and then the third step is the output, the production, the formation of both the concepts that you want to communicate and then the actual physical motor part of it, right? The tongue, the lips, the teeth, those all have to do different things when you're trying to produce certain sounds. If you've had a kid in speech therapy, you know that there's a lot of different pieces of that, right? Maybe part of it, they're working on the actual motor production, the way that their tongue and their mouth and their lips are moving. Or maybe it's more the articulation of the concepts, right? They can't quite get the feel of what they're trying to communicate, even though the ability to produce those sounds is there. All that to say, those 3 steps, as easy and simple as they are to lay out, are complex. Speech is one of those more intense, more potentially, or more possibility to go wrong neurological developmental checkpoints because of how rich this is. So when our nervous system is not properly in that healing, in that optimal growth and development mode, speech is one way that often shows up. Other examples of that would be maybe behavior or emotional regulation. That's a higher level cognitive function as well. Focusing is a big one too. Basically, think of it in the sense of if a primitive survival caveman situation, if that's not a needed behavior, it's probably not going to be highly prioritized in the brain, right? If we're in a survival, stressed out state, you don't really have to be able to communicate or speak to fight the tiger or fight the bear. You don't have to be able to regulate your emotions. In fact, maybe having a quick temper is beneficial because you'll fight stuff off faster. My point is, these are intense processes. Now, what can go wrong, right? If any of those phases are jammed up, now we're going to have issues with the end result. Number 2 and number 3, that integration and then the output are the most likely scenarios we can get those things jammed up. That's the most likely areas where that actual formation of speech not ending up as it's supposed to goes awry. Now, what does that look like? That jammed up nervous system is what we call subluxation. That's what we call a stressed out, dysregulated, dysfunctional neurospinal system. And that can show up different ways in 4 different reasons. A big one that you've probably heard us talk about if you've been around here for a bit is the birth process. Damage to this mid to upper cervical spine because of its proximity to the brainstem and this key upper neck areas in your body, that's going to have a big impact on this. That is going to affect our ability to communicate and do all of these 3 steps, the input, the integration, and then the output of speech. But that can show up in different places, right? Maybe it's a later in life thing, or maybe it's a toxic chemical, nutritional, environmental aspect that sent that neurological piece into a stress or into a locked in fight or flight state. No matter what started it, we've got to get our kids out of it. We've got to unlock those complex neurological pieces so that we can get back on track with communication. Now, there is still a need for speech. There's still a need sometimes for those other therapies because we have to relearn something, right? If it's a 4 or a 6-year-old who's later figuring that out, they've gone through the steps where the tongue was supposed to do that, so it's harder for them to catch up. So we need those extra things, but that can never happen if we don't get that underlying operating system working. And man, we've had so many cool kids recently. I can think of over the last 3 to 6 months who've gone from no words to communicating and talking, and it is so exciting. That's what we want for your family too. Check out the link here if you want to learn more, and I cannot wait to chat more, answer any questions, and meet you in the office here sometime soon.